Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV and Radio watchers and listeners, and welcome to our Talking Heads show. I am Mariska du Preez, and I am your presenter for this show in this time slot today. So, what are we exploring during our Talking Heads for today? As you might have noticed by the title, we are looking at psychological safety. Now, psychological safety is one of those things that sometimes we take it into consideration, sometimes we don't. And technically speaking, inherently, it's something that we need to have in order to function properly, not only as individuals, but also as teams. Now, as you know, I work with people that move from specializations into leadership, as well as those moving up in their leadership journey. And psychological safety is something that we do need to keep in mind when we are operating in those different places. I want to start off with what this thing is. It is one of those concepts that might sound a little bit unfamiliar. And the specific element of psychological safety that Timothy Clark helped us to see with his 4 stages is we actually have different stages that we go through within that space that help us feel safe and get to an environment where we can innovate and work well as a group or a team. Now, for the stages, they are stages for a reason. If we have some of the elements and we don't have others, we will not necessarily have psychological safety as a whole in order to get to innovation. So we need to take into consideration to have each one of them. So in our next couple of episodes, we will be focusing on psychological safety and taking each one of the stages on its own and explore it a little bit. Think around how it looks like, how it shows up for us as individuals, how it might show up for our team members, and what to take into consideration when we have an area where we need to invite psychological safety into that space. Now, we have done another little video around psychological safety, and one of the things in that video that we have highlighted is the fact that it is an invitation. We cannot force somebody to feel psychologically safe. It is an invitation from us so that they can experience it if they feel safe. Now, with the stages, we are focusing on the different areas where we can invite them into and how that might look like. So the very first one is inclusion safety. Now, we have all, during our life, moved into a new space. We can think of times that we went from one school to another school, or when we moved from a school into a college or university space, or even when we have moved from school into our work environment. So when we moved into that environment, it's a new place with new people and different norms and things that goes on for these people in that environment. And inclusion is one of the first things that we try to establish. Because if we do not feel included, we will not feel safe and we will not want to spend our time with that group. So when we think about moving into that new space and we go for lunch that very, very first day. So say, for instance, we have 2 tables, and one table, we walk past the table and everybody is sort of ignoring us. They're looking away, they're avoiding eye contact. They don't really want to look at us. Now, unconsciously, we are experiencing exclusion. And what happens is we already feel a little unsettled. We feel uncomfortable in the environment because nobody has invited us in to create that feeling of inclusion. Now, walking to the other table, there might be somebody that we haven't seen ever before, and they wave at us. They actually look at us and establish eye contact, and they wave us over. We like, yeah, me, and we go and we sit at that table. Now, that's the very first step of feeling included, is being invited into that group. So now we have a place where we can sit and we can have our lunch, have a bit of a conversation with this new people, and find out what is going on. Now, within inclusion safety, as a species, we have developed this thing where we punish each other by not including each other. And it is literally part of our fight or flight, because what happens is if we aren't included in the group, and because it is so important, or used to be when we were back in the caveman days, so important for us to be part of a group to survive, it literally sends those signals in our brain. If we're not included, it's not safe, and we literally need to look at how we can protect ourselves. So by including somebody at the lunch spot to our table, it helps them to create a little bit more safety. Now, what inclusion safety, as Timothy describes it in his book, really is about, is it is an acceptance of us as a human being. So there's basically 2 criteria for inclusion safety. The one is you are human, like the rest of us. The second is we will not harm each other. If those 2 criteria are met, we are including you in our little group. It doesn't have anything to do with the way people think. It doesn't have anything to do with the skin color or the background or anything else. You are a human being, yes or no? Yes? Great. You are safe to be with? No, not a mass murderer or want to destroy us for some odd reason? Great. Okay, you can be included because it is inclusion safety. Right. So that's the 2 criteria. Now, as human beings, we have developed all sorts of hierarchies and judgments and all the rest of it. As soon as those things come in, it actually nullifies our inclusion safety. So we need to think about how it is that we think about including this person. If we have any judgments or if we have any preset ideas of why we want to include this person, it will not necessarily help them to feel safe, because we are not including them with those 2 criteria in mind, which is, yes, you are human, and we mean no harm to each other. So how does this show up in the workplace, and why is this even important? As with our lunchtime example, in the workplace, first of all, we can see obviously how this would be very relevant if I go to a new job. I have a new job in a new environment at a new organization. Yes, of course, I need to now be included into the group. Now, as the leader in said organization, when we have that new employee or new person coming into our team, that would mean we need to invite them in. We need to be the person at the table to say, hey, you, come. I want to introduce you to the rest of the team and have lunch with you and invite you in as a human being. So it is our job as the leader to do that. It is also the rest of our team's job to do that. Now, a place where we might not think about this as often is when we have a person that moves either from one department to another department, where we can still sort of see how that can work, or where the move is very subtle. So it might be the same department, but a different functional area that they report to, and a different smaller group that they work with. Now, even when we have those small changes, they might know the other people, but because they are working and functioning with this new group, we need to reestablish our initial inclusion safety, because this is a new group that we work with. Now, typically, for a lot of us, it might be that we have constantly changing groups that we are working with. We are working on different projects. We are working with different groups. We might have different shifts. And for that reason, we work with different people at different times. And every time we work in a new group or a new setting, we need to reestablish our initial inclusion safety. So we need to constantly work on this inclusion safety and take into consideration how that might impact the people around us and how that might look like. So normally, when we have very strong inclusion safety, we feel safe and we feel like we belong there. So we feel like we're part of the group, we feel safety, we start to share things, and as we will see with the other stages, it can start to blossom. So it is a lot easier for us to start to work with people when we feel included. It feels like we are included as a human being, our thoughts. We might not be agreeing with everybody, but we are included in that space. Whereas when we are not, what happens, remember the old, well, if we were cavemen sort of situation? What would happen is we need to then protect ourselves. So because we don't feel safe and we are not included, what happens is most people, their barriers come up. So that's the time when we start to see all sorts of not great behaviors. We start to have difficult conversations with this person. They are not helpful whatsoever, because basically what happens is they do not feel included in this new group. And because they do not feel included in this new group and they do not feel safe, they start to protect themselves. And normally, most of us, when we protect ourselves, we either go into a little ball and we literally do not contribute to anything, or we start to fight back. So understanding that we need to help our teammates and those that we lead to feel included helps us to see whether that is maybe something that might not be working really well. So it is not only for the new people in our team where we need to take this into consideration, we also continuously need to take this into consideration for the rest of the people in the team to make sure that everybody feels included in the project that we might be doing or the work pieces that we are busy with. Because that continuous awareness of the inclusion makes it a lot easier for people then to start to open up and basically show their soft underbelly, which we won't do if we don't feel included. So understanding this helps us then to see how this might relate to some of the issues we might have. So not too long ago, I went through a survey in a fairly large organization where some of this inclusion safety came into play. So to give you an example of how this looked like was that some of the members in the already established team would say stuff like, for instance, they would say, "You don't know the culture yet," or "You haven't been here long enough." Now, it might sound like small little throwaway comments, and for that person new on the team or the people new on the team, it really stings because they are shown that they are not included as yet. So this goes to that inclusion safety. It's breaking down our inclusion safety. So whenever it is that we're going through a change or we are working within our culture, we need to make sure that whatever happens, we include people within our different environments and spaces. And this might even be as simple as making sure the language we use are inducive of indicating inclusion safety. And here it is really using language where we can speak of our team. So when I say our team and everybody else is in the room with me for the our team, it means everybody in this room. All of us are included in our team. So we is also a good way of language for a collective. So making sure that the type of language we use within our space helps people to see that they are included. And no, this is not the type of Band-Aid that we put on once and then we're done with it. It is continuous. We need to continuously work on helping people to feel included, continuously invite them into the space. And we, as the leaders, are doing the invitations. So also remembering that we are always on a stage. As a leader, everybody looks at us. They look at the way that we do things, and they look at the way that we react and behave and interact with others. So understanding that is very important, because if other people see us doing invitations and asking people to our table and then speaking to them as a team and having those shared vision, shared goals, camaraderie as a collective and feeling included. Whether we always agree about things doesn't really matter. We still feel included. We feel valued as a human being. That's the important piece. Now, if other people see us do that, our team members or other teams' team members, of course, they will start to do that as well. And when we hear or see any behaviors or language that's not conducive to helping people feel included, then of course we can let the person that didn't do the thing that they were supposed to do exactly the way that they were supposed to do it, know that, hey, buddy, this is not helping that person or group to feel included, and we need to alter our approach. So understanding that this is where our very first base starts from, it helps us then to start to create the psychological safety that we want to create in order for our team to become a high-performing team. So this is the very, very first block. And as I said, there are 4 stages in total. So we have done number 1 today. There's 3 more to come. And in the meantime, you are more than welcome to test for the next week until we speak again, your inclusion safety invitations, so that you can build your muscle to help people feel included. And whenever it is that you are inviting them in, remember to also notice those thoughts that you might have where there are certain parameters that you put on your inclusion that does not necessarily relate to you are human and you are safe. Because any of those might just lead you in the wrong direction. If you would like to know anything more around psychological safety, or if you are a leader moving from a specialization into leadership, do reach out to me via my email, which is mariska@journeytodiscover.com, or alternatively, you can do so via LinkedIn. Until next time, enjoy inviting people in and experimenting with inclusion safety. Bye.